What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here of the BlockHash Podcast, your number one resource for all that is happening across the emerging tech space. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. Today, I'm joined by another fantastic guest, Tobias, who's the co-founder and CEO for Altitude. Tobias, welcome to the show, man. How you doing today?
Thanks, Brandon. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure's all mine.
Thank you.
Looking forward to discussing Altitude with you and learning more about what you guys are working on here in the Web3 space. Would also love to learn a bit about what you're doing here in the Web3 space. Maybe tell us a bit about your background and kind of how you got into this industry and maybe what some of those early catalysts were that made you interested. And then also how did that end up kind of leading to the co-founding of Altitude?
Yeah, I'm Tobias, a co-founder, CEO of Altitude. My background is tech startups. I've been in tech startups for over 20 years now. Got interested in crypto at the early days of Ethereum. I was kind of really fascinated by the power of smart contracts. And then when I sold my second tech company, it coincided with DeFi summer. So for me, it was a really good moment to jump full-time into crypto. And yeah, that's when I started to really kind of learn everything about DeFi and kind of got very excited by DeFi.
Anything in DeFi in particular that got you excited? It's definitely expanded into quite a wide array of things these days. But what in particular was interesting to you in DeFi?
I mean, on a higher level, what I loved and still love is the composability and the permissionless nature of things. So as an entrepreneur, you can have lots of ideas, but in the Web2 world, a lot of those ideas require buy-in or cooperation with other companies. And in DeFi, you can just build permissionlessly on top of other protocols. So as an entrepreneur, I thought that really fascinated me. Personally, during DeFi summer, I was doing a lot of kind of borrowing on Aave and Compound, and then farming on Yearn and Curve. So that was kind of really active in there, trying to get the most yield out of my ETH and kind of optimize that. And that's also when we came up with the idea of Altitude, because during that time it became very obvious because the rates kept changing, kind of incentive programs launched, changed. And then it became very clear that if you're actively managing your position, you can get really good yield. But if you're not actively managing your position, then yeah, you're leaving a lot of yield on the table. And that's how kind of the idea of Altitude was born.
That's interesting. So is that the primary thing you guys are aiming to tackle with Altitude? What can you kind of tell us about that and maybe what some of the goals you want to have for it and the problems that you're kind of aiming to solve?
So I think our primary kind of mission is to make borrowing against BTC and ETH as effortlessly as possible at the best possible rate. So what I just described, where you have to very actively manage your position, that's one of the issues that Altitude is trying to solve. So borrow against your BTC, borrow against your ETH. You can do that in multiple places, but Altitude kind of optimizes that position for you. And so that's the core of the product. And then we want to make that accessible to everyone and bridge it into the real world. So make crypto kind of useful into the real world. So with making it accessible to everyone, not just DeFi natives. So kind of really simplifying the experience for users, and then bringing it into the real world is kind of ultimately connecting it with banking rails so that people can borrow against their BTC, borrow against their ETH, and then spend that liquidity in the real world. That's kind of what we're doing.
And then so as a DeFi loan optimizer, essentially, how does that kind of work under the hood for you guys? Can you kind of walk us through how Altitude's automation kind of works? And, like an example, like when collateral is going up or increasing, or when value is and when it's going down, how does the system kind of react to that? And then, also how do you connect to these legacy systems so that you can do these on-ramping and off-ramping as well? Like just some of the things behind the scenes kind of make it work.
So the loan optimizer essentially consists of two elements. First of all, it finds the lowest borrow rate. So we've got integrations with Aave and Morpho to find the cheapest place to borrow against your ETH or BTC. And then the second part is is optimizing the collateral, or optimizing the borrow capacity. So when you borrow at a low loan to value, so let's say 20, 30%, you're leaving a lot of borrow capacity on the table. And so Altitude uses that borrow capacity to farm in yield farms and to generate yield for you. And basically arbitrage the rate between borrowing against ETH and BTC and lending funds out in DeFi. So what that means for a user is you deposit your ETH and BTC, and then you borrow a certain amount. Let's say you're borrowing at 20% loan to value. Then Altitude borrows an additional 40% loan to value on your behalf and deploys that into yield farming opportunities. And so that generates yield for you because we borrow at, let's say, 4 or 5% and then deploy at 7, 8, 9%. And so that generates additional yield, and we use that yield to drive down your borrow rate.
What are some of those rates kind of looking like? Like if you could create like a skew of how high or how low they usually go, is it kind of just dependent on, the market dynamics at the time and those liquidity pools and how many users are participating, or, is it kind of pretty static in some areas? Because I've seen APYs, go as high as a couple 100% in some cases, even higher than that. And I've seen APYs, fairly low and stable, 3, 4, 5, 6%. What are you kind of seeing in that skew, and what does it usually look like when farming?
So on the borrow side, it kind of depends how much leverage there is in the system. So what we've seen during bear markets is that borrow rates can be as low as 2, 3%, and they're currently around 4, 5, 6%. So that's on the borrow side. Then on the farming side, it depends on your risk appetite. So Altitude is not farming in any of the 100% plus APY farms usually, because usually they come with a ton of risk. And so the kind of the risk adjusted returns, or the returns from the pools where we farm, which are relatively conservative, they're usually between like 8 and 10%. Sometimes we can lock in like a 12 or 13% if the market is a little bit out of whack. But normally, normally the markets are pretty efficient, and you're ending up like farming somewhere between 7, 8, 9, 10%.
How much improvement are you guys seeing in areas like capital efficiency, for example, versus traditional DeFi lending setups? And then are there any trade-offs or maybe risks when you push for higher efficiency when it comes to something like capital?
So the biggest capital efficiency that we bring is your loan to value. So if you are a kind of casual DeFi user that doesn't want to kind of keep continuously worrying about being liquidated, then you borrow somewhere around 20% loan to value, 30% loan to value, because then you can easily sustain like a 50, 60% price drop, and you don't have to worry about your position. So kind of casual borrowers, I'd say borrow, like what we see most is people that borrow between 20 and 30%. At Altitude, we've done a lot of research, and from our research, we concluded that we can farm at 60%, 60% loan to value without it being too risky. So that means that if you, as a user, you borrow at 20% loan to value, we borrow an additional 40% loan to value for you. So you can see that that's a lot more capital efficient. And so basically, when you borrow at about 20% loan to value from us, then usually your loan is interest free. So we're able to create we create enough yield for you to basically offset your entire interest.
Do you have any examples or use cases that you can kind of highlight that kind of show this in action? I'm kind of curious also which, user segments are maybe getting the most at Altitude, whether that's retail, someone's long-term, are these also institutions in some cases? Because I know that that's really popular for them these days. Like what do those segments kind of look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the users that love our product the most, they're kind of casual DeFi users. So they understand DeFi, but they don't want to spend kind of every waking minute in it. And so what they do is they take a 20, 30% loan, and then they let us optimize the rest of the position. And the people that love us most are people that use that liquidity in the real world. So we do, our kind of most like our favorite use cases are one of our users bought money to buy a Tesla, another put in Bitcoin to buy a piece of land, and a third person put in Bitcoin to borrow and then bought an iPhone. So we see a lot of kind of those real world use cases. And that's also where we kind of want to take the product next, where we make it even easier to spend money into the real world. So kind of adding banking rails, adding a card, adding bank transfers to make it really easy and accessible for people to use ETH and BTC as collateral and borrow against it. Because what the feedback that we're getting, we have users that come in and say, well, I've got a TradFi loan at like 7, 8, 9%, but I also have Bitcoin. And those are my personal favorites because those people are not actually taking on more debt. We're helping them to refinance TradFi debt at 7, 8, 9%. And if they have a low enough loan to value, then we can get interest-free loans for them or even self-repaying loans.
Yeah, that's something that's fascinating. I know that you can't necessarily collect this type of information on chain specifically, but I'm wondering if you have a way to kind of find out what people are generally taking, DeFi loans for, like if those are for small consumer goods that they want to buy, like let's say because of the holidays and Black Friday coming up, maybe they want to buy a big gift for a friend or a family member, or maybe they're trying to refinance their car, or maybe even they're trying to get a mortgage for a house, like depending on how much risk they want to take and how deep they kind of want to go into this. Do you have any data on that? Have you been able to do like any polls or surveys? And if so, like where does that kind of lean? It's just completely out of curiosity because I don't think I've ever asked this before.
Yeah. So what we see with most of our users is that it starts usually with one kind of decision point. So as I said, the person that bought that borrowed to buy a Tesla, the person that borrowed to buy land, and then after that they kind of see how easy it is to borrow, and that it's completely flexible, and that the rate that the rate is very good, and then they start using it more. So then they're starting to use it as a little bit of a piggy bank where they will just borrow more, and then we can track it on chain, so we can see that people use it, for example, to top up crypto cards. So we see kind of the user behavior kind of they kind of discover the power of unlocking liquidity against their collateral, and then they start to use that more and more.
What do you think about maybe where on-chain lending is kind of going here in the near future? It keeps moving toward, greater automation and real-time risk management. Curious what shifts maybe you expect to see and how borrowers continue to manage collateral and liquidity and yield over the next few years and what that maybe transforms into.
If you compare the state of DeFi today with DeFi summer, it's like it's been an explosion, right? I mean, you can just about keep up if you spend every waking minute in DeFi. So I think what we will see more and more is kind of a segmentation into people that are very active in DeFi and people that are passive in DeFi, or like passively using DeFi. So they might even not know that they're using DeFi. Because I think the casual user in the middle, I think it'll be harder and harder to keep up for that user. So I think on one hand you'll see kind of professionally managed lending, professionally managed debt, and on the other side you'll see kind of completely passive usage of DeFi, of kind of applications, products, protocols that are built on DeFi rails that are managed and that give users the best possible outcome. I think in between is very hard, because more and more as a casual DeFi user, you start to compete with the big liquid funds, with the big money, and they've got very advanced kind of risk management, kind of tooling that helps them prevent losses. Especially, for example, if you look at the stream finance situation, like the larger capital allocators can respond like really quickly to those events. It's the retail users kind of in the middle that are like that are active in DeFi but don't check it every waking minute that get squeezed. So I think that we will see that more and more as DeFi keeps growing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like DeFi is slowly going to move into being like this back end type of stack for finance in the future. Because if you're able to automate a lot of the complexity of DeFi and abstract that away from people and take away that manual component, then I don't see why it wouldn't be something where you don't have to think about it and have to think about needing to allocate to this and switch up what your yield uh, farm portfolio strategy looks like, and make sure you have this token and swapping for this and bridging that and connecting to this wallet and doing all these things. Like, it's very complicated for people. It's complicated even for myself these days. So I imagine it would be a natural progression when you have something like Altitude and you have some degree of automation in there. Maybe some of these things go to the back end of your wallet, or you don't have to fiddle with it too much. You can just push a button and it auto allocates or auto figures it out, or you can just set preferences and maybe that kind of makes a deterministic decision for you. I imagine you're probably thinking like the same thing too. Like it's more a feature of like automation, finding ways to take away that complexity.
Yeah, totally. Automation and obviously still keeping humans in the loop, because yeah, you still need humans for risk management.
What do you think about AI and agentic when it comes to DeFi? It's something I've been hearing a lot more about, and I think maybe could be a nice way to find other ways to either automate certain sides of the DeFi space, or even find ways to make it a little bit easier to manage for a lot of people. Just given the level of complexity and that needs to be abstracted away. Is that something that you guys have kind of explored as maybe something that you could implement down the line, or just as a factor that will be a part of DeFi that you need to adapt to at some point? Or what are your thoughts when it comes to that integration in the future of AI and DeFi?
AI is an amazing opportunity for DeFi. I think in the current state, the way I view it is it's an amazing helper. It's an amazing kind of tool to use to make informed decisions. At the current state, I don't trust it yet to automatically allocate funds, and I don't trust it yet to with my kind of main wallets to give it an instruction and then for it to execute. I don't trust it enough for that yet. But I do love how it can get 80% of the job done really, really quickly. So I think it's a very useful tool, and yeah, we're obviously staying on top of the developments there, and I think it unlocks a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, I don't trust it 100% yet either, but as a tool, I do think it's very fascinating. We'll see where that goes. And then last thing I want to ask you about was the market. We talked about it here a bit before we actually jumped on and started recording, and we were talking about what happened with the big liquidations and with stuff with Stream Finance and the 93, 94 million and Balancer and a few other things that have been happening across the markets, and a lot of macro stuff as well, geopolitical. Like there's so many different things that are kind of like creating a large degree of volatility, but also a lot of fear and pessimism. When you take a step back and you kind of look at the bigger picture, do you feel like this is something that's like cycle ending narrative type stuff, or do you feel like this is like leverage is just being wiped out, people that are overexposed to the market, maybe like a resetting moment to go forward? It's a very interesting point in time going into the holiday season and right into 2026. And it's like there's this big unknown of like, where are we at? Well, what are your thoughts kind of on just the space at large right now and where markets are heading?
Yeah, I mean the recent issues with kind of the deleveraging and with kind of I guess the kind of the results from the 1010 kind of price drop. I think that's the kind of the Stream Finance kind of issues there where they lost 93, 94 million. I think that's a little bit a natural kind of wave of the market, and that natural kind of how the markets kind of behave. Um, if it's good times for a long time, people start to chase higher yield, increase their leverage, feel like there's no risk in the market, and then leverage keeps building, and then you have an event like 1010 where people turn out to be over leveraged or maybe on the wrong side of a trade, lose a lot of money, and then they are insolvent. I think that's just how that just kind of it just comes and goes in the financial markets. What I love about DeFi is how quickly we discovered this. That after 1010, it I think in TradFi it would have been a lot. You could have hit this a lot longer, and in DeFi it just became very obvious very quickly. And then what it allowed DeFi to do, because it's so transparent, within like a week or a week and a half, everything was kind of back to normal, and yeah, some people lost money, and now we're kind of back to kind of a steady market. So I think it's quite healthy that we had that, and I think it proves how strong the transparency within DeFi is.
It'll be interesting to see kind of where things end up heading and how DeFi kind of adapts to the state of the market right now. But I think it's done pretty well, and I think the rate of innovation is also kind of propelling a lot of new interest going forward too. And I don't know, 2026 is going to be very interesting. Where I don't think we're going to have a moment like we did with DeFi Summer a few years back, but I do think that the space is attracting the right kind of attention, is growing at the right pace to compete with TradFi on a respectable level. So interesting to see where it eventually goes, and can continue to clean up different parts of the space.
Yeah, exactly. And like and events like 1010 and with Stream Finance, it's another stress test for DeFi, right? What you see is that everything kind of works, or most things work as intended, and that's very encouraging to see. The big protocols, like no issues, everything just keeps running, and that builds more and more trust in the system. So that's really good to see. I mean, it's obviously never good to see people lose money, but the silver lining from these big events is it's another stress test that we've survived as an industry.
So with Altitude, what are your guys' plans heading into 2026? What's new for you guys on your roadmap that people should keep an eye out for? Are you going to be making any changes or additions to Altitude? Any updates or announcements that people should be aware of? What can we look forward to next year?
So yeah, our main focus remains on providing the best rate. So we keep adding yield strategies. We'll keep adding borrow strategies, and we spend a lot of time on building a great user experience. So we will keep improving the user interface. We're also going to improve our transparency. So with Altitude, one of the benefits is that all the funds are always on chain, so everything's verifiable. But we haven't made it super easy for users to find. You can see everything on chain, but you'll have to do your own research. So we're going to push transparency a bit more. And then what I'm most excited about is just basically making that Altitude experience where it's really easy to borrow, and it's a kind of the best place to borrow. Making that linking that more directly to the real world. So we're really excited about adding banking rails, adding a card, adding bank transfers, because we see that the users that love us most, they borrow and they spend the money in the real world. So that's what we want to double down on and make that as easy and as smooth as possible.
Do you have any plans to attend any of these millions of events and conferences in the space next year?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So my personal favorite is ETCC. So I'll definitely attend that one, and then I'll probably go to one of the Token 2049s. And those are the kind of the main events that we'll attend this year.
Okay. Is ETHCC the one that's in Paris usually?
Yeah, it used to be in Paris, then moved to Brussels for a year. That was quite scary. Then it moved to Cannes last year, which was great. It was very hot because it was July. So I'm grateful for the organizers to move it to March, April. Probably be much nicer temperatures. But yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, there's so many in this space. It's kind of hard to keep up with all of them, but hopefully we'll be able to meet up at a couple of these. I'd love to go to Token 2049, and maybe we can meet up and do another episode in person at some point for maybe a part 2 and catch up with what you guys are doing in 2026. So we'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah, let's do it.
And then where can people go to keep up with Altitude? Website, the best place to go? Do you guys have socials? Do you have a community? Where would you send people?
Yeah, so yeah, best place, I guess, homepage to start with. From there, you can link to the app to check out the rates. And we're active on Twitter, Twitter X, on Altitude FI _. And then we've got a Telegram community and a Discord community. And then, yeah, those are the main places.
We'll make sure that all those links are in the description for the episode below so people can easily find everything. Tobias, really appreciate the time today. It's been great getting to chat with you and learn more about Altitude. And yeah, would love to do this again in the near future. So definitely keep me updated on where you're going and where you're traveling and when you guys have new announcements to make with Altitude. And happy to have you back on.
Cool. Yeah, likewise. Looking forward to meeting you in real life in Token 2049.
Same here. IRL meetups are always the best.
For sure. For sure.
All right. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks. Bye.